Welcome to Patty's Aquatics. My name is Adam, and welcome to the fish room. So today's not one of those exciting videos to film, but I think it's an important subject and thing to talk about. I said in the very beginning of when I started this channel, I was always going to show everything good and bad. I'm always going to show reality in my fish room of what's actually going on. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to make things look like they're not happening just so everything looks grand and great. That's just not me. So what's going on basically is, well, I had a couple fish die this week and they got sick first, and I did a bunch of research and it was affecting my community tank up here. And I think I'm battling a chronic bacterial infection, and I think there's a good chance it could be fish TB. Now, what is fish TB? I guess we can talk about. It's obviously, like I said, a bacterial infection, and what it can do to the fish are it can make them skinny even though they're eating. They can give them the curved spines, popeye, ulcers, or sores or bumps. Let's see, deformed lips, lethargic. There's a bunch of different symptoms of what could potentially affect the fish with the fish TB. The funny thing was, like I said, doing all my research, I kind of connected a lot of dots. What has been going on in this tank almost the last 2 years that have been affecting my platies, and I think that might have been with them to begin with. And the two rams that were in there, two of the three rams, got sick this week, and they're the ones that died. So what I want to do in this video really is, I'm going to turn the camera around here in a second, but I want to explain to you what happened in my opinion. I'm going to explain to you how I think I got it. And then I'm going to explain to you the solutions and things that I can do, and then what I'm potentially going to do. And then I'm going to want your guys' potential help and opinions on what you guys think after you hear everything that I got to say. So with that being said, let's turn the camera around and let's deep dive into it a little bit more. So this is the community tank. I just turned the lights on about 20 minutes ago, so my fish aren't completely active yet, but let me just point out first that probably one of the things you're first going to see and notice if you follow this tank or this channel at all, the number of my platies have dwindled over the last couple of weeks. And that's something I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But first, I just want to say again, reiterate, I am not an expert on this. I'm not going to proclaim to be. All the information I'm going to be sharing and giving you are things that I've learned over the last week or so, really deep diving into this to try to figure out what was going on. And again, like I said, I think there is a potential again, that I have fish TB, Mycobacterium, I believe it's called. I'll put the name of it underneath because I'm terrible at pronouncing words. So I think that's what's going on. Really, to start from the beginning, what happened was about a week and a half ago tops. My two rams, I came down here, and two of the three rams, the big one and one of the small ones, wound up having these like sores on the top of their head. Like they weren't open sores, but they were like white bumps, I should say, right in the same area as where a male cichlid would get their hump on top of their head. And I thought it was strange. I thought maybe they were fighting or something, even though I've never seen them fight before. And the next day I came down here, and all of a sudden the big male had Popeye. Its one eye was all sticking out and protruding on the one side. And I just thought that was very strange because everything had been doing great down here. Like, again, like I said, I've never seen fighting between any of the fish. Not that that wasn't a potential or that there was some kind of wound that could have got them infected. But so I started doing a bunch of research and trying to figure out what I could do. My game plan really was to try to potentially take them out, put them in a different tank, and figure out what kind of medication I should get to treat them, to see if that will help. Um, the big one really started to get lethargic, and I'll throw some video in here of what he had looked like near the end there. And he wasn't coming out. He would hang out in the back, and he would still eat here. The small one didn't see really any difference besides that bump on the head. And I was just about to order some medication, and then I came down here that next day, and they both were dead. Um, that's when I really started, like I said, doing more deep diving into really what was going on and thinking what could have happened. And that's when I came across the fish TB and was starting to read on that and some of the symptoms of it, like I said before, with the deformed lips, the um, popeye, the bumps, the curved spines, the skinniness, the lethargicness, and that started to point me like connecting the dots, like I said, with my platies. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I have been dealing with my platies for almost 2 years now of them dying off, them getting lethargic and skinny, and some of them with bent spines. And I always chalked it up to poor genetics, that, inbreeding, keeping the same line for how long. And I really thought that's what was going on with them. But now I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. What if there's something potentially more going on in this aquarium than just a bad line of breeding? What if I actually have fish TB in here, or at least some type of chronic bacterial infection? Now, when it comes to fish TB, I can't, like I said, I can't 100% say that's what it is. You have to bring a deceased fish in to get tested to see one way or the other if what it is. And there are other bacterial infections that can mimic fish TB from what I read, that are not deadly, but they can be deadly, excuse me, but it's treatable, I should say. So there is no way to really tell if it is or not unless you bring something in to get tested, which I'm not going to do. So like I said, so that got me thinking, what if that's what's been going on here the entire time? So the question then lies, how did I get it? How did I get this bacterial infection within my aquarium? If it came with the platies, then, like I said, I'm trying to connect the dots again. I go back it's about a year and a half, 2 years that this has been happening. There's only two things that I can think of that probably started it. Now, back then, this was a dirted tank. This wasn't just sand. And the first thing I can think about is, well, what did I add to this aquarium first ever? And that was a resurrection jar. The first resurrection jar I ever kept, I added to this aquarium. And I very well could have transferred something, fish TB or a bacterial infection or something in that water, over into this tank at that time. And it's a little infuriating because, again, this is another reason why I feel that resurrection jars and the food web are just not a good idea for your aquariums. It sounds all great and hunky-dory. Trust me, I went down the route with it, but at the end of the day, you cannot see everything in those jars. You can see little critters or things that you don't want in there, but you can't see the things in the water that you can't see. And like I said, I'm not saying that's where it came from, but I'm saying that is one of the possibilities. And the other possibility is, well, I had some of these platies out in a summer tub that same summer. And when I brought them in, I didn't medicate them because I didn't know any better at that time. I didn't think about it. So it is possible they could have picked something up from like the bird poop, or that was in the water or something they ate, and transferred it over into here. So those are the two things that I think that it came from. It either came from that resurrection jar, or it came from not getting them medicated after bringing them in from being in their summer tub that summer. So those are the two options where I think that I got it from. So what do I do now then, I guess, is the question. Well, that's the tricky part. So if it is fish TB, there really is no way to cure it. It's going to just keep going and going. It's going to live on everything. It lives on the biofilm. It lives in your substrate. It'll live on your wood, your plants. It lives in your fish. And there's no way to get rid of it. It's contagious. I could potentially, if I use something from this tank, I can accidentally put it in another. I could infect another tank. So the options are, one is do a full reset in this tank, which would be, I'd have to take all these fish and I'd probably have to put them, lights are off, excuse me, but probably in this 10-gallon tank down here, clean it out, keep it a bare bottom, and they'd probably have to live their life out there. I'd medicate them and see what would happen. I don't really want to cull them. I just euthanize them. I mean, if they would get sick again, I would probably do that to put them out of their misery so they didn't have to suffer. But I don't want to euthanize them just because. So that's one plan, is to put them in there, and then I would have to basically take everything out of this aquarium, gut it, drain the water. I'd have to take a a bleach or vinegar spray, and I'd have to disinfect this tank, and then I'd have to let it sit dry for weeks, almost a month, to make sure that every little thing of that bacteria is dead and out of there before I reset up this tank. And I'd have to reset it up with everything new. Like the shrimp are another thing. You know, the shrimp are thriving in here. That was one of the things I was concerned about by putting the beta and the rams in here, that their population would dwindle. But yeah, no, they're thriving in here. Now, they, from what I read, don't typically get the fish diseases, but that bacteria can live on their ectoskeleton, their shell. So if I would keep one of them and put them back in a tank, they could potentially infect that tank again or any other tank by what's living on their shell. So they're going to have to go in with the fish. The wood, the rocks would have to go back outside. The wood, I could potentially boil the wood again and potentially kill it, or I just get rid of it and start fresh. Filter, I'd have to I can't speak. Sterilize it and get that cleaned off. The heaters, everything, I would probably spray with like a bleach spray and then soak in water. The plants, honestly, that's the hard part. The Dorsage, I'm not worried about. I got a lot of it. I'd probably have to toss that. The Crips, I'm sad about. I don't know if they would survive. The other thing is this Anubias barteri I have. It's like 5 years old, because the bacteria can live on the surface of the plants. The Anubias, from what I read, is a little hardier, so I believe I can potentially try to dip it in a bleach mix, water mix, and see if it makes it, hopefully, and then I could reuse the plant. I probably would remove it from the piece of wood, though. I could try dipping the Crips in that. I don't think they're going to survive that, but I probably would do that just to see. And like I said, I'd have to wait a month or so. Then reset this tank up something completely fresh and new. The other option would be to just keep it how it is now. I get some medication, and I'm going to medicate the crap out of this tank. Do massive water changes, keep nitrates and ammonia at 0. Make sure it's clean all the time. Just a lot of work, which is fine. But I'd also, like I said, mentioned earlier, I'd have to be very careful with my handling, with putting my hands in the tanks, with using anything. I don't want to use anything I put in this tank in any other tank, just out of the possibility it could be fish TB. And in the end, if it is fish TB, a lot of these fish are going to wind up dying, and I might have to reset it anyway. So that is really where I'm at, because I don't know which direction to go. Like I said, my gut is telling me to do the reset just because I want to be safe. I don't want to potentially infect anything else in my fish room, and it might be more beneficial for the fish to get in. I mean, it's going to suck to live in a 10-gallon tank, don't get me wrong, but I don't want them to keep dying in here, and I don't want it, like I said, a potential to infect the entire fish room. So that's what's been going on in this aquarium. One question I did have for myself thinking about this is, why did the rams die so quickly compared to the platies? And after doing a little digging and doing some thinking, my guess would be is that the rams are more sensitive fish, so that infection probably ran through them a lot quicker than the platy, who's more of a hardy fish, so is able to withstand a little bit more. So that's why they probably have more of the gradual die-off. At least that's my thinking anyway. I could be completely wrong on it. But overall, too, just knowing that I potentially had a hand in getting this added to this aquarium and having this happen, it's a little infuriating and disheartening. Knowing that using those resurrection jars could have been a cause to it. Like I said, the first resurrection jar I ever used was in this aquarium. That's why I'm such a proponent against these resurrection jars right now. I think from adding something like this from the wild into your aquariums is just not a great idea. Like I said, I went down that rabbit hole with these things. I added them to many of my tanks, got infected by planaria worms, and quite a few of them from it. But you know, they tell you that you can observe these jars for 30 days or more, and you can pick all the bad stuff out. You can't pick stuff out of the water that you can't see. And that was like my biggest point when I started to talk about this and made videos about it in the past. You can't see everything in these jars, and by randomly adding it to your aquariums, you can't stop everything from getting in there, and this could have been the cause of it. Now, if it was from the summer tubs, that too, like I said, that was the first year I did summer tubs and I put them out there, and I never thought about medicating them before I brought them in, but that I did that all this year. I medicated everything I put in there, and it makes me a little leery thinking about that too, that just having my fish outside in a tub could bring fish TB into my aquariums. But just things to think about, and it's really, like I said, disheartening. But this is where the point now is, like, what do I do? Like I said, I think the full reset is probably my smartest bet to do, but that's where I'm going to reach out to you guys here. Now, I know there are lots and lots of smart people out there when it comes to a lot of different things within this hobby. I am no expert when it comes to diseases. I really have never fought with a lot of diseases in my fish tanks ever, besides like ick. And I'd love to hear some opinions. With everything I just laid out in this video, from symptoms, what's been going on, what I think I can do, what is your opinion? What would you do if this was your tank and this was your fish room? Would you do a full reset? Would you clean everything out, disinfect everything, move your fish? Or would you keep them all in there and just medicate it? Maybe the symptoms I told you don't sound like fish TB to you. Maybe there's something else that you're thinking it could be, and a different option that you could do to save the tank. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and what you think. Like I said, I'm not an expert in it. I don't proclaim to be. I'm just a hobbyist who loves to put a camera in front of my face and show you what's going on in my fish room. And so that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I guess enjoyed would probably be the wrong word, but maybe learned something. But anyway, but if you have, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. It'd be greatly appreciated. And hit that hype button if you want. It's supposed to help us smaller creators, and it'd be greatly appreciated as well. And then I'll let you guys know all what's happening, what I plan to do in future videos, and I'll probably take you along for those rides because I like to document everything I'm doing in here. So I hope to see you again next time here at Patty's Aquatics.